Good morning, my friends. This is the Grimflayer. Hope you're all doing very well today. We are here playing yet another Golgari match, and we'll see how this holiday weekend goes, but if things go according to my current plan, this might be the last list with, or excuse me, the last match with our current list, and then the next video you'll be seeing from me is a November update to the Golgari deck with a few changes, kind of a moderate level of changes overall, but ones that are fairly significant. I'm putting the finishing touches on my new 75, and again, we'll see how it goes. But I expect that the next video you'll see is that update, and then matches going forward for the near future will be with a new and hopefully improved 75. But for now, we're playing with the deck, with the build that's given us such good results lately, both in paper and on here, and I like our hand. I like our hand a lot. We're on the draw, and of course we hope it's a matchup where Fatal Push is good, right? But turn 1 Thoughtseize is pretty much good against anything, and of course Liliana can be great turn 3. We just need to hit another land, and we should be off to the races. So our opponent likes their 7 as well. Island Mox Opal. Alright. Expedition map. Interesting. Okay, so we don't draw land yet, but Tarmogoyf is a castable spell, and definitely the threat that we have been lacking in our hand thus far. Okay. Artificer's Intuition kind of confirms it. So, Island Expedition map could be some kind of Bluetron variant, but Mox Opal doesn't really fit with that, right? An Island Mox Opal could be any number of War of Invention decks, but Expedition map is not always what you see there. But Artificer's Intuition, this card to me confirms that this is a blue-based prison deck, right? Because this is a nice card that lets them cash in, you know, excess Mox Opals or even extraneous Expedition maps to tutor up one of the 1 mana or fewer prison lock pieces like Pithing Needle. So this is definitely some kind of blue prison deck, and I'm going to go on a little mini rant about the naming conventions here. So I think when I do upload this video, I'm going to call it Lanternless, but I don't like the name Lanternless because I don't think you should name your deck after what it's not, you know? I don't really like Bloomless Titan either. Just call it Amulet Titan, people. Come on. And but then again, maybe Lanternless is the best and most recognizable name for this deck. I don't know what to do because MTG Top 8 calls this deck Lanternless. MTG Goldfish calls it Grixis Whir, which I don't like either because it's barely Grixis. I think we've got red for Pyrite Spellbomb as a one of, and maybe some sideboarded Girapur Ether Grids, maybe not much else. And black is for Tezzeret, basically, who is also probably in the sideboard here. So I don't really like that either. And then MTG Salvation calls it Blue-Red Prison, which makes more sense to me, but again, you know, giving red equal billing to blue doesn't make sense here. And then you hear the name Tezzerator being thrown around too sometimes with decks like this. I don't know what to call it, so I guess we're just going to go with Lanternless, which is probably the most recognizable, but I'm on record. I don't like it. Come up with a better name, you guys. Come on. But anyway, so this is a deck that is, well, maybe Lanternless is the most fitting, because it's kind of like Lantern Control in that it seeks to assemble some lock pieces, like, you know, Ensnaring Bridge is still a core component of the deck. It uses a Word of Invention to find that, and other pieces. But unlike Lantern, it does not seek to manipulate the opponent's top deck. So they're not really messing with our draw step. And because they don't want to do that, they free up a lot of slots that would otherwise need to be dedicated to Lantern of Insight and Millrocks. And they can just focus on assembling more of a, you know, more lock pieces based on their opponent's deck and what it's trying to do, rather than trying to lock them out of some good draws. So our opponent is a little bit low on gas. They've got a lot of, you know, they've basically got 5 mana sources here, including what's on the board. So here, Artificer's Intuition is a nice piece in the deck, but I think we pretty clearly have to take the Word of Invention. that's just their best card when they have the mana to cast it, which they're going to pretty quickly here. So we said it right at the start that we hope it's a matchup where Fatal Push is good. It is not a matchup where Fatal Push is good. It might be completely dead here. We will have to see. Sometimes they might play cards like Padim or Sai, but those, in my experience, tend to be sideboard cards, and I'm no expert on these decks, and furthermore, they are in a state of kind of flux. A lot of brewing space is to be found within these decks, and a lot of stuff is down to taste because it's an unsolved archetype. But yeah, I expect Fatal Push to be pretty much completely dead here. Alright, so Tarmogoyf is actually a fantastic clock. They play a lot of stuff, enchantments, artifacts, you name it. We're going to get all the unusual types into the bin here, one way or another. Grafdigger's Cage is another one of these one-of tutor pieces that they can find. And they might be hoping that it's okay against us, like maybe we're Abzan playing Lingering Souls, but this doesn't hurt us at all. And of course, last turn we drew our third land, so now we're very happy to be able to slam the Lily. Thoughtseize Tarmogoyf Liliana, classic BGX progression, and even more ideal than usual against a deck like this. That said, the rest of our hand is totally dead right now. Excess Lilies and excess Fatal Pushes. So, interesting little decision point here. Part of me wants to hang on to this other Liliana, right? Because Liliana is so good in the matchup, and if they somehow manage to deal with our current one, we'd like to play another. That said, I think they are empty-handed enough, and our Tarmogoyf is threatening enough, that I just want to grow the Goyf right now this turn and get the clock as quick as possible. And of course, they already have an instant in the yard, so pitching a Fatal Push does nothing there. So we're going to go ahead and pitch our other Lily. It's a little bit higher risk, high reward, but I don't really know what they could have to deal with the Liliana. Their best answer to it is probably a Pithing Needle, against which a second Liliana in hand does nothing. So we'll crack in with our newly swole 4 or 5 Tarmogoyf. Replay is being a little bit stubborn here, but there we go. They're going to crack the Expedition map on the end step, and they get Academy Ruins. Now, Academy Ruins is really nice here, because not only can they buy back cards that we deal with, they can also buy back cards that we don't care that much about, like Expedition map, and feed them to the Artificer's Intuition, right? So that's a really nice engine in the deck. They can also potentially shrink our Tarmogoyf by making the taking artifacts out of the graveyard in general, making Tarmogoyf a little bit smaller. That said, we have an answer to Academy Ruins on the field right now with our own Field of Ruin, and we drew another one. So while we want to draw removal pieces, spot removal that hits artifacts and enchantments ideally, that's an okay draw, I guess. So we'll pitch a Fatal Push. We've got the Lily ticking up. That's also very nice. We crash in for 5. We've got him on a 2-turn clock. Tarmogoyf is just so great here. I don't see much point in waiting. We're just going to hit the Academy Ruins and make them take action now. It would obviously be really nice if we had a discard spell to follow this up with, right? Because then they would have to activate the Ruins, go get the map. We then discard them to follow it up, and they, even if they tutor in response with Intuition, we just take whatever they tutor. But all right, so there goes the Academy Ruins. And they top decked a Welding Jar. They get to go tutor up a Pithing Needle, and yep, that shuts off our Lily. That's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. It's definitely step 1 for them to stay in this game. But we've got the Tarmogoyf crashing in for 5. What have they got to follow it up? Okay, looks like maybe... Yep, okay. They're going to cash in a Chalice of the Void for the Artificer's Intuition. Engineered Explosives, man, okay. That's a really nice really nice answer to the Tarmogoyf. Sure. You got me. And we're just drawing blanks. Land. We've drawn Fatal Pushes. We've drawn extra Lilianas. Yeah, ever since about turn 2, we've been drawing completely dead off the top. So, attack with the Tarmogoyf, force them to crack the explosives. And yep, feels bad, but we're just going to pass. I think we're still supposed to hang on to these fetch lands, at least for now. You know, hide some information, all that good stuff. All the usual reasons we want to hang on to fetch lands. Tireless Tracker here would be pretty good. They find a Pyrite Spellbomb. Alright. We find a Liliana, the Last Hope. That is a pretty good draw. Definitely have some better draws in my deck, but maybe this is actually better than most spot removal at this point now, because they have a Welding Jar to protect, you know, whatever piece is best, which of course would be Pithing Needle right now. So even though this exposes the Last Hope to the Spellbomb activation, I think we pretty clearly just take her down, go get the Tarmogoyf right now, make them answer the Tarmogoyf right now. Like, they have to top deck an answer to the Goyf. Another EE or Ensnaring Bridge to shut off the attack, something like that. Or, of course, a tutor piece to go get them. And they don't have it. Alright, so let's recap. We had just a few spells that mattered all game. Turn 1 Thoughtseize taking away Word of Invention was obviously really nice. Turn 2 Tarmogoyf was obviously what won us the game. Our decision to pitch the other Lily early on was vindicated by just how fast this clock became. Turn 3 Liliana the Veil was obviously nice. Like I said, the classic BGX sequence of discard into Goyf into Lily, really, really, really good here. Field of Ruin mattered as well, right? Field of Ruin was definitely nice to stop their recurring value from Academy Ruins. But we had 3 Fatal Pushes that were total blanks. We drew an excess Liliana of the Veil, which doesn't really help us in this matchup. And then we drew, like, even the second Field of Ruin was kind of a blank. We just drew dead. We just drew, you know, what, 3, maybe 4 lands off the top. And then, of course, Liliana of the Last Hope was a relevant draw because it bought back our Tarmogoyf, which ended the game the following turn. So at least half of our draws here were total blanks, totally dead. The reason I want to emphasize that is because there are matchups in Modern, and this is one of them, where you can have the proverbial wrong half of the deck problem, like we had here, and still really comfortably win, just on the back of a couple really powerful cards. Thoughtseize, Goyf, Liliana did it for us. They just got there, and it was all we needed. So, of course, if we had not drawn that turn 2 Tarmogoyf, our opening hand was barren of a creature. Liliana of the Veil is a threat in a way, but what you want to do against this, unacceptably named blue prison deck is present a Tarmogoyf ideally, but some kind of a threat and some kind of a heavily disruptive element, whether it's Liliana or whether it's a bunch of hand disruption. That's going to strain their defensive pieces or lock pieces to the max, right? Because they just they just need to answer both. They just need to answer both. And so the fact that we had a bunch of dead draws and a bunch of dead cards in our opener didn't really matter because they could not answer both once we bought back the Tarmogoyf. They were able to commit one piece to answering the Lily and the Engineered Explosives to answering the Tarmogoyf, but once we came up with another Tarmogoyf or a recurred Tarmogoyf, they just kind of died. So let's go to the sideboard and see what we want to come out. But this is one of those matchups in general where we are very rewarded for playing a lot of catch-all answers and a lot of flexible cards like Liliana that are still good against creature matchups, but really, really shine against decks like this. So to the sideboard we go, and let's see what's up. Okay, my friends, sideboarding against this blue-based Lanternless prison deck. Now, there's going to be a few slam dunks here and then a lot of maybe board cards. So what we're going to do is be kind of generous with our maybe board cards and then look at what wants to come out, because we know there's at least a lot of cards that are slam dunks to come out. So we'll talk about what definitely comes in, talk about what's realistic maybe board and why, and then move to the main and kind of figure it out from there. So Engineered Explosives is a for sure card. This can hit him on 0, 1, and 2, and it's going to be pretty good a lot of those different ways. Definitely a card that we are very, very interested in here. So that's a for sure. Then we've got Nile Spellbomb, right? So Nile Spellbomb is going to potentially keep their graveyard clear and compete over a Academy Ruins activation. So that's definitely good. But we have a lot of answers to Academy Ruins. We can hit it with the Field of Ruin. We can hit it with Assassin's Trophy. And it is only probably a 1-of in their deck, right? So, granted, they in practice play more copies because they can tutor it with Expedition Map. But how highly I rate being able to compete on that axis overall is unclear. So I guess because we're being generous with our maybe board inclusions, we can put them both in the maybe board for now and then figure it out when we look at the main deck. But I doubt we want both. I could see one, I doubt we want both. Maelstrom Pulse is a definite. This is just the type of matchup where we want to kill their non-creature permanents, and Maelstrom Pulse can certainly do that. Nice 2-for-1 potential here as well. They're not incentivized to play around Pulse with cards that are 4-ofs, like Ensnaring Bridge, because we play discard and we play spot removal like Abrupt Decay and Assassin's Trophy. So they're going to play out their bridges almost certainly. 2-for-1ing or even 3-for-1ing a bridge is, wow, so good. So Pulse is great. Golgari Charm, this can destroy target enchantment. That's really the only live mode, as far as I can tell. Now, they do play some transformative sideboard cards like Psymaster Thopterist. That if they have it, it might come in against us. This can kill the Thopters. Yeah, okay. I guess that's a thing. Regen, I don't know what their density of spot removal or sweeper effects is going to be. I don't expect that it's high. So again, it's kind of hard to say because these decks are not really, they're still kind of in flux. There's still kind of a lot of unknowns that they could have. Again, I'll put it in the maybe, but Destroy Enchantment is really why we want it. And even then, Artificer's Intuition, probably not more than 1 or 2 of, and then maybe they have Girapur Ether Grid in the sideboard. Yeah, okay, so there's a lot of question marks over this card. We will have to see. Fulminator Mage seems kind of tempting on paper because, they want to hit land drops, and they do have some nice utility lands, but I am actually not interested in this card. I think we don't want to attack their lands on a 1-for-1 basis. Field of Ruin is fine because it's already in our main deck, but I don't want to bring in more effects that do that. They just, they're going to draw lands, they're going to have Mox Opals, they have Expedition Map. It's just not realistic to land screw them out of the game. Choke, on the other hand, is a reasonable maybe board card just because they play a lot of basic islands, and we're probably keeping in all 4 Assassin's Trophies, so they're going to get to go fetch some islands if our interaction is going off, and yeah, Choke can be nice. So maybe for the Choke. Nissa is a fine flex card in the matchup, but I think she's too slow. I think we need to be getting in under their lock pieces. Obstinate Baloth does not do much. These sweeper effects do not do much. Ditto for Kalidas. Collective Brutality I actually don't like here because they play too many non-creature cards that are not instants and sorceries. So I think this card can blank a surprising amount of the time. I might not even leave my 2 in the main end, so I'm not going to bring in the 3rd. Duress, on the other hand, is a for sure slam dunk. This is just going to hit almost everything relevant they play. Again, they may have Sai or Padim something like that post side, but main deck, I don't know that they play any creatures at all. So Duress is arguably our best form of spot discard. Surgical Extraction is a card that I like in the maybe board here. Extracting a card like Ensnaring Bridge is fine. Seeing their exact 60 is also quite relevant. Quite relevant here, more so than in most matchups. I don't rate that very highly. Like, I have kind of high standards for when I bring in this card, right? So when people are like, oh, it can mess with their Snapcaster Mage, you know, this can mess with Academy Ruins. Okay, I still need more convincing to bring in the Surgical Extraction, but another argument along those lines is, oh, you can see their post-sideboard configuration. Again, I usually need more convincing than that to play this card, but in this matchup, I actually really like seeing how they sided. And of course, we're being generous with the maybe board stuff anyway, because we might have just a lot that's bad to come out. So in come the 3 definites for sure, and out come the 4 fatal pushes for sure. Again, they might play a creature or 2 post side, but we've still got plenty of ways to take care of them. So what else don't we like? Well, Lily the Last... So, like, we want to keep this card, Tassiger. Let's just start over here. Great threat. Great way to buy back interaction. Love it. Pulse is amazing. Tracker is amazing. I did say that we want to get in under their lock pieces, so even though Tracker is slow, seems like we might not be that interested in all 4 Tracker, we actually are, because this card is going to let us dig for answers to their lock pieces, and that is invaluable. Lily the Veil, obviously amazing. Realistic win condition, realistic out to some lock pieces, just good disruption in general. Lily the Last Hope is actually less impressive. She actually won us the game in Game 1, buying back the Tarmogoyf, but generally, they're not destroying that many of our permanents. Like, they tutored for an EE, they killed a Goyf, we bought it back, great. All good. But she is actually not that high value here, partially because they're not going to destroy our permanents that much, and partially because her ultimate is actually not a realistic win condition necessarily, because they have Ensnaring Bridge, and they're going to shut off the zombie attacks. Now, and of course her +1 doesn't do much against a deck that presents almost no creatures. So she might actually have to come out. You can leave her in, that's not bad, but she's a realistic candidate to cut. We like all 4 of our trophies. We love our Abrupt Decay. We love our Tarmogoyf. Scavenging Ooze is fine. It's another threat. It can mess with their graveyard. If we have to make cuts, you could cut 1. Just because it's not likely to get that big. It's just going to be a Grizzly Bear attacking and occasionally messing with their graveyard, but we don't want to just be using this as a mana sink to take their graveyard low, because again, Tarmogoyf is our best card, our best creature at least here. So, yeah, I could see cutting 1. I can see cutting both, or at least one of these brutalities, right? So, again, the discard mode is sometimes of limited use. The -2/-2 is almost completely dead, and the drain is fine, but whatever, not that relevant. Not that relevant overall. They're not attacking our life total, right? So when our life total is not under duress, no pun intended, this card looks a little bit worse. So we've got some maybe board cards to come out. And then I do still like Inquisitions and Thought Seizes. It's a little bit of a question of whether we want to trim down on one of these and just replace it with a duress, because as good as these are, they can also empty their hand pretty quickly. That said, I think we just want to leave them in, but let's see what we don't like. So what if we just say we're going to take out all 4 of these right off the bat? That lets us bring in all 5 of these cards. That's fine. That is a play. That's pretty good. That said, I don't really know if we want the second Spell Bomb. I think I'm satisfied with just 1. And the Golgari Charm is also, I'm calling that into question. I think 1 Spell Bomb and Choke and Surgical are cards that I'm more interested in than these 2. So if we do that, and we want to bring back any of these 2, I think that would be my advice for sideboarding here. So this is your 58, and you bring back whatever 2 of these you prefer. maybe you Hagjin, you do one Brutality, and then one, maybe just a Scooz, or maybe you want the Lily, but, yeah, something like this looks totally fine to me. I think this is the 60 that I would run with. Don't remember exactly what I did for this upcoming post-side conclusion of the series, but I do believe it was something very, very close to this. And yeah, in my opinion, this is how you want to look post-side against this Lanternless blue-based prison deck. Now, if you have any other suggestions, as always, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. But otherwise, let's head over to Game 2 and see how we do on the draw. Alright, everybody. Game 2 on the draw against this blue prison deck, and yeah, we've got a one-lander we can't really keep. As you can see, in this matchup, I did opt to keep a Lily, the Last Hope, and I believe over an Ooze. This hand is way too clunky to try justifying breaking our golden rule of do not keep one-land 7s unless they've got hate pieces that you really need to see to win the matchup. This doesn't, it's all main deck stuff. You know, turn 1 Inquisition's good, very good. Turn 2 Tarmogoyf is very, very good, but I don't think we can keep this hand. Alright, this hand is got some stuff, right? Abrupt Decay is amazing. Turn 2 Tarmogoyf is great. Turn 3 Lily is great, but we have no black sources, and that's very bad for trying to cast either of these cards on curve right now, especially this one. I don't think we want to mull below 6 in general. You'll notice that I am very liberal with mulling my 7. I'm very happy to say, you know what, this is suboptimal, or it's not really functional. Going down to 6 with a Scry is just about as good. I'm very conservative with keeping my 6s. I do not like going below 6 in this deck. We are just too fair to realistically win against an opponent that keeps 7 with an average 5, right? Like, with a good 5, we can realistically win. With an average 5, it's a real uphill battle, a lot of the time. Cards like Tireless Tracker can get us out of that, but for now, this is a somewhat functional 6, right? We can go turn 2 Tarmogoyf. We can field something and get black mana for turn 3, or turn 4, I guess, Abrupt Decay. We can hit our land drops, we have a Scry, we're on the draw, so we're going to see an extra card. I think this is a keep, even though it's got some question marks over it. Tasigur, you're great, but another black source that we can't cast yet, I believe, has to go to the bottom. They've got a Tech Edge off the bat, which might contribute to our mana woes, but at least it's not going to happen right away. We draw a Blooming Marsh off the top. Beautiful. So our opponent's ramping out of the gates. They have Expedition Map and Mox Opal. And what else do they have? A Misty Rainforest. Fetching an island. Playing a Spellskite. Alright. Yeah, that's a pretty good one against us. There's a creature that they do have. I have to assume it's a sideboard card. But definitely kind of another welding jar style effect that can protect their lock pieces while also serving as a blocker against some of our smaller threats. Now, we have just drawn 2 untapped black sources off the top. Very, very lucky here. So not only are we able to deploy our Liliana next turn, we also don't even have to take turn 2 off to do so. That's pretty great. Of course, Tarmogoyf is getting walled off by the Spellskite right now, but this card will get very big very quickly, as you saw in Game 1. So our opponent's got a bridge. Okay, fair enough. We draw Golgari Charm. So, yeah, I did end up bringing this in this matchup here. Like I said, it's a borderline card, and in my finalized ideal 60 that I just showed you, I don't have it in, but it's fine. I looked up deck lists after this match and found that Artificer's Intuition is usually only a 1 of, but, you know, it's still a borderline card even with that in mind, and again, you never know with these decks, they could be playing more copies of it. But regardless, Liliana of the Veil is the clear play here. And we're going to tick her down. We're going to tick her down, and here's why. We want to get the Spellskite off the board cleanly. We do have some semi-free pitches here. And, you know, depending on what's in their hand, taking them up could be fine. It's also unfortunate we don't get to attack, because this puts both artifact and creature in the graveyard, and Bridge just kind of shuts them off. But still, you know, taking up Lily against Ensnaring Bridge, we're kind of doing their work for them. You could go either way, but of course, right now, our main goal is to Abrupt Decay this Bridge. So we take care of the Spellskite, next turn we can decay the Bridge. That at least is the plan. Opponent's got another Bridge. Alright, fair enough. So this is what I mean. They can't really afford to sequence around Maelstrom Pulse. So Maelstrom Pulse would be our nut draw right now. 2 Bridges unprotected, that's what we want to see. They got 2 cards left in hand. We're going to Thoughtseize them. Thoughtseize being our draw for the turn. They've got Witchbane Orb, which gives them Hexproof, and Artificer's Intuition. So, you know, maybe our opponent, again, is playing this as more of a one-of. We've seen it in both games. Or maybe they're just finding their one-of. But regardless, both of their cards are going bye-bye here. We've got this card into Lily ticking up. Pretty free to pitch our Forest here. Of course, Field of Ruin is a card we rate more highly here. And, you know, Golgari Charm might be kind of dead in hand for the moment, but we're pretty happy to pitch a Forest over it, at least for now. So they're going to play out a Tolaria West instead of transmuting with it. That's interesting. I guess they want to hold up Expedition Map or Tech Edge activations here. So because we're on the Lily plan, we're going to fire off an Abrupt Decay here. Yeah, they could have transmuted for a Welding Jar there, but yep, they want to Tech Edge our Field of Ruin. That's, you know, that's not ideal, but it's definitely fine with me. So whatever they search for with the Expedition Map is now potentially safe from our land destruction related shenanigans. So yep, Golgari Charm just gets pitched to the Liliana. We draw Swamp for turn, which is not very exciting. And they do have Metalcraft, so end step they get to go find Inventor's Fair, okay, with the Expedition Map. And that's another really nice, probably only one of, maybe this card is good enough that they played 2, even though it's legendary, but Inventor's Fair and pass. So this is something that's going to slowly gain them some life once they get Metalcraft again. I guess this is not Metalcraft technically, but just about the same thing. And of course, they can sack it to tutor for any artifact card. Really nice boost to all of these style decks when this card was printed. Yeah, I mean, Tireless Tracker is a card. Definitely a nice one to have because it's going to make our land drops live here, and again helping us dig for answers. This Ensnaring Bridge is just kind of walling us off, but it is nice because we have the Lily ticking up they really have to deal with, and we're now representing card advantage. It's going to depend on us drawing lands. Opponent thought about going to tutor for something with the Fair, so they need to tap 4 and it. They couldn't quite do it yet, right? Because they don't quite have Metalcraft for the Opal. Alright, they make a land drop, so now they can tutor with the Opal. We draw an Inquisition. We're drawing pretty dead here. Drawing pretty dead. So we'll just take up the Lily, pass the turn. And they once again decline to go get something with the Inventor's Fair. Interesting. Maybe they want to give themselves the best chance to top deck some kind of answer, and then they want to tutor based on that answer to help solidify the lock rather than just tutoring, you know, right out of the gates. So they draw Tolaria West for turn, they go get a Welding Jar, and they play the Welding Jar. That's fine. That's a fine play. Another Tireless Tracker, pretty bad here, but, you know, again, if we draw some lands. Alright, opponent's got Metalcraft. They've got their life gain trigger. What do they draw for the turn? Padim Council of Innovation. Wow. I mean, that's a good one, but I think our opponent just kind of misplayed here. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Inventor's Fair. Tap 4 in it. Well, they've got 4, they've got it. They go search for a Pithing Needle. They use Mox Opal to play the Pithing Needle, and then our Liliana cannot ultimate. I think that's, or indeed even take up to get the Padim out of their hand, so that's even safe in their hand to their knowledge. Now, granted, we draw Thoughtseize for turn, we could take the Padim, that's fine. But this game, you know, I believe they should have tutored for Pithing Needle, played the Needle, and then Lily is just stuck at 6, and our creatures are stuck here. We Thoughtseize the Padim, the game goes on as it was, you know, with, you know, beforehand, so it's down to a top deck war. Now, I still kind of favor us here, right? Because we have a lot of natural outs to their permanents. We have to fight through a Welding Jar, that's definitely a thing, but any land drop we're just going to start churning through clues. We're going to crack clues, we're going to find more land drops. With Double Tracker, we're just going to flood them with draws. We're just going to completely bury them with card advantage. That said, our opponent chose not to tutor for the Pithing Needle. Of course, we're just going to ult the Liliana, and as soon as I started making the piles, our opponent scooped. So, I don't know whether they had a little bit of a brain fart in terms of, you know, hexproof being relevant against the Liliana ultimate, which is not, because we are targeting the player, not the pieces, and they're being sacrificed, not destroyed. So the Welding Jar is also not live. So that kind of, you know, the Liliana ultimate cleanly gets around all of their ways to disrupt interaction, so they just kind of needed to go get a Pithing Needle there to stop that. Now, granted, maybe the game doesn't literally end on the spot because they can keep whatever pile has Ensnaring Bridge, and then I'm still walled off from attacking, right? But that's still very, very bad for them. My plan here was to give them a pretty lopsided pile with Ensnaring Bridge and just very little else. I don't know exactly what I would have done. Maybe Bridge in like a land or something, because I really think I just beat them when they don't have Ensnaring Bridge almost immediately. So I would have to have given that some close thought, of course, as you always should with a Liliana ultimate on a complicated board state. But yeah, I think our opponent, although they played well throughout the game, they might have missed a trick there. Again, maybe they just thought hexproof or jar or something was relevant against the ult, and then once I actually did it, they scooped. Maybe they thought she had to be on 7 to ult. I don't know. Regardless, again, Thoughtseize would have answered the Padim if Lily had the Pithing Needle, and we go back to kind of the top deck war. With Double Tracker, we've got to be favored. We've just got to be favored. As soon as we hit a land, we are off to the races. We've got a deck full of spot removal and non-creature permanent removal. We are going to get there, in my opinion. Now, that said, it was still a good game, and it was still demonstrative of just how good a few pieces can be. Again, this game, we kind of had Thoughtseize into Tarmogoyf into Liliana. Just the classic play yet again. This time our Tarmogoyf didn't attack. This time they had a turn 3, I believe, turn 3 Ensnaring Bridge, and we were just kind of walled off for the entire game. Liliana did the whole thing for us. She ticked up, she got a couple cards out of their hand. We pitched some dead cards like Golgari Charm, and we just kind of lilied them out of the game. Sometimes that's all it takes. So I believe that matchups like this are extremely, extremely good for us. If prison decks ever get more traction in Modern than they already have, we are one of the best positioned decks against them. The big exception to this are the red, the Pyro prison decks, I believe they're called, that try to power out a turn 1 Blood Moon. Sometimes that will still just beat us, even though we play 6 basic lands, especially if we're on the draw. Yeah, especially game 1 when we don't know it's coming. That stuff is just a little dumb, and if you're trying to play traditionally on the curve. Even when you're a completely non-greedy 2-color mana base, you can still just lose to the turn 1 Blood Moon. That said, against any other aspect of even that prison deck, we are very well positioned, because we've got the clock, our Tarmogoyfs get really big, we've got the card advantage to find answers, we've got a lot of natural answers, and our Lilianas of the Veil are usually MVPs against any kind of prison deck, because they might struggle to deal with her. They might really struggle to remove a Planeswalker. So, anyway, good game, well played to the opponent. Definitely a match that showcases the power of some of our core cards against a deck like this. And like I said earlier, this might be our last run out with the current build. So we're going to say goodbye to a couple cards coming up. We're going to say hello to a couple new additions. Stay tuned for that, and as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope this was an enjoyable match for you, and I hope you have a great day. I will catch you for the next video, and take it easy.